Hi guys, we'll just make a start. I don't think we're going to have a big attendance today. Can we have apologies in order of business, John?
Apologies, Chair, from Councillors Baxter, DeVink, Wallace, Coventry and Montgomery. And the order of business as published, there was a mistake in the agenda. I've issued electronically a corrected copy of that. So.
Okay. Any declarations of interest at this stage? Okay, move on to item 4, performance report in Midlothian Council. Kenneth?
Thank you, Chair. This is, I think, a broadly positive report. Progress is set out under the 5 community planning themes, and there are some good results, I think, in all areas, as well as still some clear areas for further improvement. And as members, you may wish to pick up on these at the end of this report, or indeed when we get the individual service area reports over the course of this morning and this afternoon. But really, what I want to just talk about briefly is the challenges which are outlined in the report, but certainly this is where my emphasis would lie at this stage, because I think that the work we're doing, the performance you see, is being done in the context of what are probably unprecedented challenges in terms of particularly in terms of the constrained funding moving forward. And that of course, combined with issues such as the demographic and other cost pressures, welfare reform, health and social care integration, etc. These are things that are very familiar to you. But the really significant challenge as we move ahead from here is going to be continuing to improve outcomes, particularly in some areas of where perhaps we've seen improvement, but simply not enough improvement yet, such as positive destinations or educational attainment, and to do that at significantly lower cost. And that will be all about the kind of the pace and energy of the transformation programme and delivering on the financial strategy, which, as councillors, you saw at the last council meeting. So I don't think it's not a negative prognosis in the sense that what we have here is, if you look right across the reports, is a lot of good performance, a lot of good progress. But I'm simply emphasising the scale of the challenge ahead as I see it.
Okay, thank you, Kenneth. Any questions or comments at this stage? Keeping in mind we'll be going through each of the individual services. Okay. Right, thank you. Move on to item 4B, commercial operations. Ricky?
Thanks, Chair. What I'll do again, I'll go through the front page, and at that point I'll pause for any questions. Just picking out some of the key highlights. In terms of waste services generally, members may be aware that we had some issues with staff prior to the Christmas break, and it was fundamentally about their pay. But we put something in place which allows us to look at that, and as a result, I have to say that I was very pleased with the response that we got from staff in terms of the festive waste collections, and they went very well. The second thing to highlight is the award of the £36,000 from Zero Waste Scotland to promote recycling. Why that's important, kind of moving further down, there's a comment there in relation to the residual waste treatment. The residual waste treatment facility that's being proposed at Miller Hill is basically 2 elements. One is a front-end treatment, and the second element is an energy from waste plant. The size of the front-end treatment is essentially determined by what we hope to pull out at that point. And what SEPA, the legislative body, are particularly keen on is for authorities to do as much as they can to promote recycling, and that would then determine the size and the cost of a treatment facility. So in other words, if we're successful at that at the front end, then we don't have to spend literally over the 25-year life of the contract millions of pounds to take that recycled waste out. So that's a very positive step. In terms of the facilities at Miller Hill, we've now undergone, or now undergoing, the site clearance for the food waste facility, and that was Aluna, the company that are now on site, and they're taking that forward. That plant will then be available to us in late 2015, which will coincide with the introduction of food waste collections in Midlothian. Moving on, in terms of the road network, I've mentioned there that we're in the final phase installing 400 LED street lighting columns. That's obviously going to reduce our energy requirements. What's not mentioned there, and it's just something that's recently we've been made aware of, is that we made a bid for funding to further increase the number of LED columns that we've got, and we've got a zero interest arrangement now in place that allows us to replace a further 250 columns. We're building on that, and we're trying to make a business case that will allow us to actually further increase the number of LED columns that we can put in place. There's two benefits of LED. One is significantly reduced energy consumption, but secondly, and equally importantly, is the reduced maintenance. These LED lights have a guaranteed life of 20 years plus, which essentially means that if they do become a repairs necessary, we get that from the manufacturer free cost. So that's a very positive step going forward. The other one that I'd like to mention in terms of the road network is the work at Lugton Bray. Members will be aware of the substantial problems that we've had. Councillor Russell will be aware of the ongoing issues in terms of the diversion route, and I'm pleased to say that that work is now coming to completion. I was on site yesterday, and we will make the completion date by the end of this month. We may actually pull that forward by a few days, but it's certainly well in progress, so no concerns there. Moving on to land services generally, we're making good progress in terms of the improvements up in Rosewell and also the various skate parks. So in 2014 we'll see substantial improvements in these various areas. The last thing that I'd like to mention is it's on the top of page 16, and it's in relation to an emerging challenge, and it's the Traffic Warden Service. Members may be aware that Police Scotland, as part of their cost-cutting exercise, advised all councils that they intended to withdraw the Traffic Warden Service across Scotland. They didn't see that as a core service that they could support going forward. Now, we've put an interim arrangement in place which gives us an opportunity to look at our options in detail, and there'll be a report comes to Council for consideration at the end of March. But it is, and I have to say, it is a serious concern in terms of there are two or three options, and I don't want to go into in too much detail. As I say, this report's coming forward. One of the views was that we could take forward decriminalised parking, so it's similar to what you see in Edinburgh. However, there are real concerns about whether we in Midlothian could actually make a viable business case for it. But as I say, that will come forward in the report in March at the end of this month. Happy to take questions as far as I can in that one. So, Chair, I'll pause at that point and happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Ricky. Questions? Jim?
Just a couple of a slight aside on the question of the traffic wardens. I contacted the local community police officer just about a week and a half ago about an issue of parking outside a school, and what he said to me at that point was that they would get the traffic warden to attend. So if he's managed to do it within the next sort of the following week, it looks like that's the only time. He certainly didn't seem to be aware that the traffic warden service was being withdrawn. Anyway, could you, Ricky, on the bottom of page 14, you've got a one line there, sorry, 15. Proposals are being developed for discussion with the trade unions in relation to lower graded salary positions. What's that alluding to?
That we would, as officers, look at the pay of the lower grades right across the council, and indeed, as part of that process, we entered into a memorandum of understanding, so it kind of outlined what it was we were going to do and what we were going to look at. We did say in the memorandum of understanding that we would come back to them with a progress report essentially in 2 months, which was the tail end of February. And there was a bit of misunderstanding there, in as much as the trade unions were clear that we would come forward with, right, here's a way forward, whereas I think the waste guys in particular thought we would be coming forward and saying, we're going to give you X, Y and Z. So that work is still ongoing. What we were clear about in terms of a proposal is that whatever came forward, it had to be essentially self-financing, and that's the part that would take time to develop. So we're still in that process, and what we've said is that it's going to be somewhere around June before we can fully develop that, fully consult with the trade unions and say what are our options here to allow us to deliver on that. So we're kind of still in that process.
So I take it then that if we're talking about being self-financing, we're obviously not talking about enhancing their wages just directly, but we're talking about opportunities to move into other areas, to expand on the kind of responsibilities they're taking and things like that. Is that the kind of direction that we're going to?
To be honest, we've no closed anything out. Councillor, we're quite happy to look at absolutely everything that would allow us to self-finance that arrangement. But as I say, the difficulty is that we are looking at it right across the council. So at one end, you're looking at, certainly the waste staff, and in the other spectrum, you've got areas in the social care side. So it's trying to get something that we can adopt that allows us to look right across the area. So everything is basically in scope to allow us to do that.
Yeah, I suppose it's really the point that Ricky's just made about this being across council. And in the report we brought to the last council in terms of the financial strategy, there was a section in there in terms of reviewing terms and conditions. And the fact is that if you look at cross-council comparisons, and at the lower end of the pay scale, in Midlothian, the pay is lower than in many other comparable councils. So the question is, can we actually do something about that? And in terms of then looking at how that might be balanced out in terms of funding, because of course, in the context of the wider financial position, which is serious, that's an important consideration. The idea is that we're looking very broadly across the piece at what might be done. The issue is, and I think that Ricky's made this point, that if we're looking at something which is about salaries specifically, i.e. not a particular job or series of jobs changing in terms of their grading, if we're looking at salaries generally, then of course it has to be applicable right across any given grade that we're looking at, grade 1, 2, wherever we might go on that. And there's various routes where we might look to claw back some of that elsewhere.
A couple of points. The road network, the LED lights, it's the whole column that's getting done, and many columns are in need of replacement. But are they all in need of replacement, or is there options there where it's just the head that needs changed on the lighting column? And the LED lighting, you might not have this to hand, but maybe a wee bit more information on how much does that actually save us? If we've got 400 and another 250, on natural running costs, I know you've got the guarantee, but I'm sure the guarantee is obviously just for the head, So is it prudent to put the column in at the same time as we're putting the light head in as well? And obviously, you'd be choosing the ones proactively that are most in need of repair, for the shall we say, the columns that are the most rusted or the most deteriorated, is the ones that's needing replaced first. So if you just give me a bit more information on that. On the Land Services General package, I've maybe raised this point before, but when you say several projects with funding in excess of 300,000, it does really imply that it's Midlothian Council funding. This is at very best a cocktail funding package, supported by local members' environment improvements monies, but supported from fund grants as well, outside grants, and a lot of the money's in there, you know, is reported as 300,000, in excess of 300,000, but I'd like that clarified, you know, in there, how much of that is actually council money, how much is it is maybe even ward members' money, if you want to include that as council money, and then the overall costs, I mean, how much of that is actually grant, you know, and I know the council's done a good service on helping communities access the grants for this, but I didn't like seeing the figure sitting there at 300,000 in excess of, because a lot of people think that's just totally council budget. And the final thing on the, I mean, I know there's a lot of discussions going on in the lower graded salary positions. You know, when I first read that, it says lowering. I read it too quick. Lowering the grades of salaried positions, but no, there's always calls for more dog bin emptying. You know, for the more frequently emptying the dog bins, because they're proving popular. They're getting filled up so quick. You know, I mean, that's good. You know, that's preventing it being flung about the parks and the walkways. But I'm always conscious that there's a cost factor to it if you're going to increase the collection rates. And then I was thinking about Middleton Village, you know, particularly in my area, but you could say any rural area. Is it not possible to collect the dog bin when the black bin waste is getting collected in the area? Is that just too simplistic? You know, that we could actually say that the bucket motor could actually take away the empty dog bin stuff as well while they're in that rural kind of setting.
Thanks, Councillor. In terms of the column replacements, what I'll do, and I'll provide it for all members, is a breakdown in terms of what we actually get in terms of a saving. It's not as simple as to say each column will give a saving. It all very much depends on the type of column. So in other words, we have 5 and 8 and 10 metre high columns with different lanterns at the top of them, so they give different savings. As a rule of thumb, the money that I was talking about in terms of allowing us to replace a further 250 columns, the payback period, if it's 8 years or less, then we get that funding and we're able to satisfy that. But I'll give you a breakdown of that. And you're absolutely right in terms of the columns that we choose to replace. We've got something in the order of 18,000 columns, so replacing 400 is a small percentage of them. The ones that we're replacing currently are two different types. There's either steel, which where we've done testing, show that a sample of them are rusted to the point where they may fall down. Similarly, we are an example is in Crawley's Road, which is kind of within just your constituency area, and these are concrete columns, and you'll see spalling on the columns. They're being replaced. So it is very much done on sound asset management principles in terms of the ones we pick. Land services, again, for members' information, in relation to the 300,000, I'll give you a breakdown in terms of where that is, what that funding is. Absolutely no problem in that. And in terms of dog bins, again, I have completed the review that we were asked to undertake in terms of street sweeping right across the board. I've got a paper that's coming forward this month which is going to give you the results of that review. And just to give you a little kind of flavour of it, in terms of litter and dog bins, what we're proposing within the existing resource, so we're not taking on additional resource, within the existing resource we're going to provide an additional vehicle and man to look after dog and litter bins. What that's going to allow us to do is increase by up to 300 the number of bins that are available for distribution. As part of that report, what we've got is essentially a rationale that allows us to consider requests. So as well as providing additional bins, it's actually going to allow us to increase the frequency where it's necessary so that we can then make sure that we've not got overflowing bins. So that's something that's coming forward for members to hopefully agree, and then we will take that forward. So hopefully that will be seen as a positive.
The overall funding thing of the 300,000 in the land services, I'm not needing a further report on that, you know, but I'm just I want you to take on board that I'd like to see it reported in that manner. You know, I'd like to see it explained fully that it's a cocktail funding kind of package, and that future reports should come back to say that, you know, partnership funding is attracted, you know, or council's involvement includes some of the, you know, any appropriate words to take it away if you're thinking it's just council, you know, kind of, so we can't take the credit for it all, you know, as a council. But obviously the communities that strive to raise that kind of funds are obviously acknowledged at the same time. And I mean, it just seems to be, and again, you know, as a layperson's kind of opinion, you know, what's the point of seeing a council bucket motor coming into a wee village like Middleton with maybe just a couple of street buckets? You know, I know that it could be dog fill buckets or just normal litter. But just to come into a wee village like that and then go away, you know, with all the assets, you know, and men and crew, and then another vehicle come up just to empty the street bins. You know, I just wondered if there's any consideration about, you know, if that street bins kind of emptying and replacement could have get done at the same time as the commercial operations for the wheelie bins were proceeding. I know it's a different loading technique and everything else, but you know, I just wondered if there was any kind of thing that's rationally could have been included in that, and maybe get further information on that in the future.
Yeah, okay, I take on board the point about the funding, so I'll make sure that that's clarified in future reports. In terms of dog bins, the only difficulty that arises there is that the residual bin is emptied once every 2 weeks, whereas what we do is we collect the dog bins twice a week, so it would only be one of those 4 that the dog bin. So, but I'll take that back to the team if there is anything that we can modify there.
Thank you, Chair. I welcome the additional dog bins because that's something that in part of my ward is a big issue, walkways and that type of thing. But the main question is in Lugton Bray. There's no one more happier than me to see that work is nearly completion. The concern for the people that live in Lugton Village, of course, is the fact before this happened, they were welcoming a new road in their area, which is in good condition. And I know that the concern now is that once everything is moved away, is there a thing in place to say that you're going to go back and check the road, and if there's any repairs needing done, the whole goodwill exercise would kick in, and it would be back to as best it can be. And how much communications is there with the council, with the residents of Lugton Village, to say that the work's going to be near complete, and what other measures are going to be put in place to right any wrongs with regards to repairs?
Yeah, I actually had a conversation with Neil Dougal yesterday about this, and it's absolutely our intention, as soon as we divert traffic back on to the A6106, on completion of the repair, that we go into the road at Lugton Bray. I was on the road yesterday, and it's clear that there are some areas that, as a result of the volumes and the types of traffic that have gone there, that there is areas that are deteriorated. So we will be going back in there as soon after the A6106 is completed. And the second part of that is that our intention is to advise residents in Lugton Bray of both what we're going to do and the time frame, so that they'll have that information available.
On page 18, Ricky, the last item on the fuel management actions are off target. I realise this is quarter 3's report, and it indicated in here that it should be actions should be complete by quarter 4. As I say, I realise this is quarter 3 report, but can you confirm if that is the case?
These actions are actually completed now. They've actually been completed, so they're closed off.
Okay, Ricky, thanks. Ricky, there's a couple of things I just want to be clear on. When you talked about, and I can understand why Margot's coming from the Lugton Bray side, there's probably a lot of pressure there. When you say you're going to go in and carry out work there, I take it that will be measured against work that's required everywhere else, and this just isn't a case that we're spending council money because there's a loud voice in Lugton Bray. Because I could name you probably a dozen places where roads and pavements are a sight worse than what they are on that road at Lugton. I travelled it yesterday, as you know, I emailed you to say that I was in. I couldn't see anything greatly wrong with the road. I could, in tons of other areas, Loneheed, Bonnerig, Gorebridge, that are in a sight worse condition. So I hope we're not actually going in here to say, well, we're going to placate a lot of noisy people for the simple fact that they are being noisy and that this isn't being measured against all the other work that's outstanding.
No, that's absolutely the case. I mean, there are areas within Lugton that you'll have looked at and you would think, well, that's no need and done, and that is the case. But there are one or two areas that if we don't do something now, then in a very, very short space of time, they'll form into significant potholes. So, for example, one or two of the areas I've looked at around the street furniture, you can see that there is severe deterioration in those one or two areas. So given that there's going to be substantially reduced traffic there once the A6 106 reopens, then it will be targeted. It's not going to be wholesale. And yes, it's absolutely in line with any other requirements.
Okay, Ricky, just a bit more on the LED street lighting. Just wondering how you came, how the 8-year payback works with that. I thought you had said at the start of that an LED light was guaranteed for sort of 25 years. Why are we looking at a sort of 8-year payback? I'm just looking at this and I'm thinking to myself here, well, we're installing these at a cost of what, £2,500 sort of each. I would have thought if we're saving anywhere in the region above £100 a year, then it would be cost beneficial to actually install these all over, because effectively over that period of time you would get your money back plus. So I'm not sure how we're doing a sort of 8-year, or is that just sort of a rule of thumb for looking for payback?
Sorry, what was referring specifically to there is the funding that's being made, the external funding that's being made available to us at 0% interest, and it was the requirement from the funders that we showed a payback of 8 years or less. And as I was alluding to earlier, different lighting columns have different energy uses. One of the downsides, upsides, call it what you like, within Midlothian is that we have a substantial number of columns that have the lower energy use, and it's the difference between those lower energy use present and what the LED would offer that allows you then to weigh that against the cost of replacing them. So it's that cap of 8 years from the external funders that was their requirement to allow them to release the funding. That's why I made that reference.
Okay, because unless my counting is wrong here, the reality is any lights at all that we can get the money back in 8 years for, I would have thought we would have borrowed as much money as possible, because you're paying it back with the money you're saving. So 18,000 or no, if there's 7,000 of them that we can make that saving on, that's whether we'll get that funding level or no is a different matter, but it shouldn't stop us from trying. Any other questions for Ricky at this stage? Okay, Ricky, thank you for that. Can we move on to item 4B2, which is customer services given?
Thank you, Chair. In terms of customer services for Q3, we're looking back in terms of the customer service strategy, which has continued to be developed towards completion in May of this year. That will encompass proposals for channel shift, which is how residents can access council services, and the change in developing that. Also based on customer insight and engagement, so that we understand through profiling who those customers are and where they require to access council services. So that will come forward in due course, but is on schedule for completion. In terms of revenues collection, you'll note that levels are down on council tax, which is in line with other authorities in the current economic position and the pressures that are being faced by council taxpayers and debtors. There have been improvements in performance for recovery through the Sheriff Officer service level agreement, as well as lower costs that have resulted from the new contract that was developed with our Sheriff Officers. The accounts receivable, again income to the Council, has had additional resource with focus from internal audit about progressing their recommended actions corporately. That has been taken offline and we expect to report improved position in Q4. In terms of the challenges ahead, there is the background of welfare reform. Universal credit has now been delayed further to 2016, will not feature in any Scottish area other than the current practice in Inverness until 2016, which gives us a longer lead-in time in terms of preparation for the impact and mitigation actions. Certainly to date, as Council will be aware from the Council report, that we submitted on the 4th of February. There have been a whole range of mitigation actions, and whilst I appreciate bedroom tax has been the headline issue, there are a whole host of other arrangements coming in place on the back of universal credit for welfare reform. The personal independence payment is the next stage point for us. Crisis grants and community care grants are now administered by the Revenues team under the badge of the Welfare Fund. That is prioritised above all other work in revenues at present because of the nature of the business, which are people presenting in crisis without income or funds, and other areas which are reflected in the service-specific performance reports have been suffering the impact as a result of that approach. In terms of the challenge ahead, it's a proactive engagement in terms of the anticipated further changes for welfare reform, continuing to administer the crisis grants and community care grants, which is the significant piece of work over the past financial year for revenues. In terms of IT and digital strategy, the digital strategy has been endorsed and is now being implemented through the dedicated group, which is well established for prioritising technology demands and delivery for the Council's ICT strategy. The information management has focused on the data protection concerns from the Information Commissioner's audit findings. The most recent review has been positive, and the recommendations for further improvement are now being progressed again on a service-specific basis. Members will be aware of the PSN impact that there has been as a result of the Cabinet Office Code of Connection, which takes effect from April of this year, and the rollout of mobile and flexible working arrangements and kit to members and staff in order that we make compliance. I'm happy to pause there for any questions, Chair.
Thanks, Kevin. Comments, questions? Brian?
The bedroom tax. Obviously, it's good to see devolution working, and John Swinney accepting the Labour motion to amend his budget to mitigate fully the bedroom tax applications in Midlothian and throughout Scotland. The situation in Midlothian that people find themselves in arrears solely because of the bedroom tax is obviously clients we've been addressing. Have we alerted others who are not in arrears to are we being proactive basically on this community care grant that people can actually apply to, because the eligibility status when they were previously of income support and housing benefit levels would allow them to access into this fund. And just if you get more information on how proactive we are being on it rather than just reactive.
Certainly. In terms of Councillor Portinger's question, in Midlothian we have 1,199 households who are affected by the under-occupancy charge, otherwise known as the bedroom tax. 806 of those households are Midlothian Council tenants and 393 are Housing Association tenants. In terms of the discretionary housing payment scheme, we have 222 council tenants who are receiving assistance, 106 Housing Association tenants, which equates to 27% of affected households. That was at the calendar year end. as Councillor Pottinger has inferred, there have been changes in terms of additional funding for discretionary housing payment, both from the Scottish Government, and the detail of that is yet to be finalised because it is subject to consent from DWP, from the UK Government. The position, as I understand it to date, again is still to be clarified, is that the proposal is to ensure that claimants receive the discretionary housing payment directly. If the cap that the DWP had applied is withdrawn, if it's not, the proposal is that alternatively DHP is given to the landlords, which would be ourselves and the housing associations, and we would credit those in turn to the rent accounts. In terms of being proactive, we have housing officers and revenues officers who have since November been knocking on doors, phoning applicants, because we have to have a due audit trail for the expenditure of the discretionary housing payment. We are conscious that the financial year end is looming up and we were looking to maximise those available resources. As at December, we had spent 61% of the available amount. I'm afraid I don't have a current to-date figure for that as yet.
Any other questions for Kevin? Kevin, thank you. Nice and lightly this time. Okay, now move on to item 4B3, Finance and Human Resources. Chris, are you taking us through this?
Just to provide an update, on financial stewardship, main achievements are that the 2014-15 base budget has been completed. Revenue budget strategy report setting out proposals to address the budget gap in 2014-15, 15-16, 16-17 has been presented, and internal audit plan remains on target. The Council Financial Services support for Business Transformation Programme continues as this is a key element of the programme to reduce costs in the organisation. The strength of financial stewardship in the climate-reducing budget and increasing service pressure is obviously something that remains high on the agenda, and maintaining effective corporate governance and scrutiny through internal audit programme. Through procurement, the purchase to pay scheme went live on the 6th of November last year, and the procurement team achieved 60% rating on a procurement capability assessment, where the national average is 57%. Some of the challenges there are to continue to deliver demonstrable savings through the procurement process. Through our people strategy, we currently have 7 employees who have moved through the switch programme into permanent positions, with 19 employees currently on placements through the Council switch programme, which forms a fundamental control within HR at the moment. There's a 12-week project underway at the moment to aim to deliver streamlined and effective HR transactional processes, and in addition to that, there's a number of service system updates, including updates to the iTrent system. In relation to transformational change, a number of milestones have been achieved through the systems thinkings reviews that are underway. Integrated service support projects been initiated, and the document management system is being planned and progressed within human resource and HR, and there's obviously plans in the future to look to extend that council-wide.
Okay, thanks, Chris. Questions, comments? None? You're getting away awful light. I must be feeling sorry for you. Okay, Chris, thank you very much for that. Can we move on to property and facilities management? Norman?
I'm here representing Gary Sherritt, who's sunning himself in Ballater and Deeside. The strategic outcomes. The next phase is proposed work has been finalised targeting Midlothian House and closing costly older buildings Work continues in the medium-term strategy of a new shared depot at Stob Hill, and the States will be active during 2014 to attract capital bids for the surplus assets. Phase 2 housing, the first 3 sites have been granted planning consent. Tender returns are due in Q4. One library site has been cleared in preparation for the next phase of planned applications. The analysis of the footfall to all sports and leisure facilities is now showing an overall increase, although there is a distinct migration to the new Lasswade Centre from all the other centres. Operational management at the Lasswade Centre has been affected by the long-term sickness of the centre manager, who has now returned to work and has now established the centre users management group again. The cafe at Lasswade Centre is currently showing a 30% increase in revenue against budget up to Q3, and the new tubing runs at the Snow Sports Centre are now open and proving popular. Recovery of the costs associated with this is still subject to legal action. The challenges facing the property and facility management is the reduction in operating costs while maintaining frontline services remain a major priority, along with the restructure of third and fourth tier management following the head of service reorganisation. Newbattle High School concerns over value for money and Hubco performance issues continue. This is being addressed at management director level, with discussions also involving the Scottish Futures Trust. In the property maintenance, they have completed a 5-year business plan to address the stock condition survey of our housing to SHQS standards by 2015 and beyond. This investment of capital £60 million has required a review of the workforce, resources and priorities together with the systems and management. And I'll take any questions, if I can answer them I will.
Make them as tricky as you can, guys.
Sorry?
Nothing, Norman. Questions, comments?
I've got a question, and I'm not expecting an answer on it. It's probably more to the Chief Executive. In terms of the situation with Hubco, there was concerns raised here with the programme for Newbattle, and the general concept having to go through Hubco, and the fact that some companies that we've had really good service with in terms of the projects are concerned were debarred for being in that. What kind of actions have been taken by the Council to pursue that? We did talk about having meetings with, and it's kind of alluded to here, discussions with SFT and things like that. Has there been any further progress on that?
Thank you, Chair. I mean, I think it's fair to say that the Head of Service has been very proactive in terms of meetings with Hub, both with at the territory partnering board level and with the chair of the South East Territory. He and I, together with a couple of senior Hubco reps, are meeting also with the Chief Executive of the SFT in April to talk about it. I think the other interesting aspect of this from my perspective is, you remember a report came forward to Council about my nomination on behalf of the Chief Executives in Scotland to serve on the Hub National Programme Board. Now, we have a meeting next week, and a piece of work that's been done by Hub itself is sending us a questionnaire to various stakeholders about performance, so we'll see what comes out of that. But simply in terms of trying to represent local government, I've also done a kind of an ask around of various other chief executives. Now, it's kind of early days. I've only had 3 or 4 responses. What's clear is that in some of the territory partnering areas, people are very happy with the performance, and in others, it's more mixed. I think our position here in Midlothian is that because of the expertise we have in-house, we're in a particularly strong position to subject the work of Hubco to the kind of scrutiny that I sense isn't necessarily being undertaken in all council areas, because I don't think all councils have that kind of technical capability. So, and the whole matter is very much in play. As I say, the Hub Board meets next week. There's a meeting with the Chief Executive of SFT in April. there's some areas where we feel that performance is getting better, but you remember that in some respects that was from quite a low base, and in terms of absolute delivery, in terms of the quality of the product, the timescales, and also the costs, there's still work to be done. There's absolutely no doubt about that.
Yeah, just on the renewable, the paragraph, the design consultation has however proven successful, the layout's almost complete. Consultation is my question, in there. How much of this layouts and design is actually being effectively consulted on? Is it all working to a budget plan that we've got to organise the layouts and the design according to that budget? Maybe I should ask this mayor to Maurice McCann, who I've spoke to quite a lot already this year. But the community are obviously considering the layouts. Is it appropriate to have a small court on this in the leisure and another small court on this, or would it be better just to have one big court on this? This kind of consultation where it would be bigger. Is some of the courts big enough for, shall we say, international standard or competition standard, or is it just we're going to have to take what the layout suggestions are? And is this how much an effective consultation really is the consultation part of this? So the public kind of consultation where the stakeholders and the local groups obviously have got a say on how they would like. Everybody's got a priority on how they'd like the layout, shall we say, particularly the leisure facilities and the community facilities within the hub. And I just wonder what stage we're at that is actually a true consultation. And under sport and leisure, I just wonder if you could put this into layman's words for me. The cafe at Last Wade is currently showing a 30% increase on budget. What was the budget? Was the budget a standstill, break-even kind of budget? Was the budget anticipated to make a profit of so much, and it's a 30% increase on the profit we're already making? Or can you just explain maybe fully how much money is the cafe making, and how much did you anticipate it to make?
Thank you for that. The first part of the question I cannot answer you, but I'll certainly take it back to Gary Sherritt, who will respond to you. As for the cafe, we anticipated £100,000 income for the first 12 months of operation, and as at Q3, it was estimated we would make £160,000 income. It's now estimated we'll make £190,000 for 12 months operation. So we're basically 100% more than we anticipated for a 12. No, this is income. We're making about 46,000 profit up to Q3 on the sales I've just mentioned. It has exceeded our expectations. And the cost of the concept was decided by the pupils of Last Wade High School themselves because of their ethical standards, etc. So it's been, as far as I'm concerned, it's been quite a success.
Yeah, I'd like if possible, to take further. Thanks for that information and appreciation, because it's a quality facility there, the foodstuffs, and I've used it as well, and I can see a lot of groups using it after activities and before activities, and I think it's not just the footfall, it's the fact that the way it's laid out, and it's comfortable, and it's open, and it's accessible, and and it's right there near the front door. So it's been well designed and well placed. So it's proven a lot more popular than we thought, and subsequently we're making a lot more money than we thought on it. Yeah, and look forward to further reports on that to continue, or more detail of the actual figures.
Shall do. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Chair. Just a question, the property maintenance. They completed the 5-year business plan to the stock condition survey of the housing. Did that include external as well as internal? Because I know in my own area, Harlan, things like that could be really done in the flats and different things. So it would be important if that was all part and parcel of the survey.
I shall pass your comments on to Gary Sherritt, because I can't answer that question. The meetings that Gary had with these service managers, Murray Sinclair, who's the property maintenance manager, my impression was it was the whole house, but I'll get that clarified for you.
Okay, is there any other questions for Norman? Okay, guys, we've taken time to go through this, and I just want to maybe finish up this first half by saying, is there any matters that we might want a more detailed explanation or more detailed updated information on? There's a couple of them that sort of jump out and just wonder if members want to ask for the next meeting to look at in detail. One of them where we had quite an interest in was the food waste and just how we were going to go with that. But I think probably more importantly is on the housing project, because it has been some considerable time since we went in and looked at that in depth. I see for this paper that the Q4 we're expecting the tender returns back for housing, so I thought we'd have been in a better position. Indeed, I asked yesterday if they were back, and I'm told that they are back in. They were in last week, I think. And it would be, I think, worthy of us having a look now just to make sure that the housing mix in comparison to what we're going to build is the correct mix, and where we're going to build them, and to make sure that we're using up and giving consideration to all the available land, and in other words, to be able to supply our own land where possible, so that we get a bigger build. We've done some site visits right at the start when we started here, and we went and we had a look at, for example, studio flats and stuff like that in Edinburgh, because there was quite a push, Kenneth, if you remember, for housing sort of saying, well, no, we're not going to do that, and we can't get funding for stuff like that. We then went and asked the Minister, and as far as I can remember, the response back was, well, wait a minute, if this helps get folk off the street and you can get more folk using the money, yes, the Scottish Government might help fund that. Talk to us about it. So I think it would be a good time maybe to bring everybody back together at the next meeting, just to sort of say, well, have we got the housing mix? Where's the big list now? Is it all single people? Is it, where's the big push for housing now? Should it, is there still a need for transfer? What are the right type of houses to build? Where should we be building them? And actually ask to have both Kevin and Gary in the room at the one time, and we can sort of look and see, well, are we still happy, or are there any other recommendations that we want to go? Just wonder what the feelings members were.
I think that particularly second one, Derek, would be really helpful, and I think it is extremely helpful to actually have housing and the facilities in here at the same time, because quite often if you end up talking to on these issues to either party, and it's quite often evident, certainly has been in the past, where you feel that the communications aren't quite what they should be. So I absolutely think that would be a really good one for us to take forward.
Yeah, I think so, because we have seen other sites as well. There are other reasons for doing this, because we have seen a lot of work done through Gary Sherritt's team, identifying sites, going for planning consent, and then the elected members in here then voting against the sites. Well, if we're going to vote against it, let's vote against it right at the start and not spend a fortune doing it and having staff working on it. But I think it's right at this time to scrutinise and to make sure that we are happy with the housing mix, and that they are going in the right places, and that the right choice will be taken. Is there anything else that springs to mind for today's papers? Okay, well, we'll just ask for that one to come forward at the next meeting. I would say one of the things I also think that would be handy, either at a later stage or maybe at the start of the academic year, would maybe be to get the team for the last wage centre in round the table. I think it would be more interesting to members in the New Battle area, just sort of see, well, what worked well, what didn't work well, what went right, what didn't go right, how's the place working? Because in some of Brian's questions, you're quite rightly asking, well, how are we doing the design? And I think the answer you're going to get back is that most of the design comes through the Scottish Futures Trust, which best design model type areas that's already there. In fact, I was quite surprised when we were doing the last Wade one, where there was a huge demand for corridor space, which I had never, I think they call it spill-out space or stuff like that. And there was a huge demand for that. In fact, you couldn't satisfy the head teacher to the percentage that you were. And I can mind looking at it thinking to myself, my God, what a waste of space. But when you actually see it working, it actually works quite well. So I think for a future meeting, it would be good to sit down and have the head teacher here, have the centre manager and the heads of the Department of Education and that here, and sort of say, well, how is that working? So is it that we can learn lessons and make sure if there are stuff that isn't working well, we can be asking that it gets addressed. So we'll maybe keep that in mind, and as I say, it would be handy, I think, for the local members that catchment area is going to be the new battle. In fact, I think it would be maybe even helpful for officers as well. With that, could I thank you for your attendance, and we'll ask John to arrange for housing and Gary Sherritt to attend our next meeting to give us a more detailed position. Okay? Right, thank you.